SABC, host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
The Department of International Relations and Cooperation has noted the content of a post by U.S. President Donald Trump on the Truth social media platform and says the characterization of Afrikaners as an exclusively white group is ahistorical. DIRCO also says the claim that the Afrikaner community faces persecution is not substantiated by fact. Against this backdrop, DIRCO says South Africa's focus remains on its positive global contributions. The country will continue to draw from its own journey from racial and ethnic division to democracy. In a statement, it says the nation is uniquely positioned to champion within the G20 a future of genuine solidarity where shared prosperity bridges deep inequalities, and it's looking forward to host a successful G20 Leaders Summit later this month. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump says no U.S. official will attend the G20 Leaders Summit in South Africa as long as Afrikaners are being killed in South Africa. SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Peace reports from New York that is critiquing South Africa. Trump said he looked forward to hosting the G20 in Miami next year.
2 days earlier, President Trump said Miami had long been a haven for those fleeing communist tyranny in South Africa, in what appeared to be a reference to South America, at which point the president appeared to double down and suggested South Africa should not be in the G20 at all. On Friday, a post saying it was a total disgrace that the G20 would be held in South Africa and that Afrikaners, whom he pointed out descended from Dutch, French and German immigrants, were being killed and slaughtered, and that their land and farms were being illegally confiscated. While crime is a widely recognized problem affecting all race groups, President Trump has honed in on attacks against Afrikaners, while any land acquisition in South Africa must follow an established and exceptional legal framework. Sherwin Bryce-Peace, SABC News, New York.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has stepped in to take over as chair of the Southern African Development Community. He's taken over with immediate effect after the incumbent Madagascar President Andry Rajoelina fled his country after weeks of protests. During a virtual extraordinary SADC summit, Ramaphosa said from its inception, SADC has stood as a beacon of solidarity.
We gather today, not merely Your Excellencies and Your Majesty, to deliberate on the agenda before us, but to affirm our shared commitment to peace, stability and prosperity of our region. From its inception, SADC has stood as a beacon of solidarity, but also a community founded on the values of unity, peace, mutual benefit, and sovereign equality. As these very values are being tested by a convergence of challenges, we are called upon to act with both urgency and foresight to stabilize the present while safeguarding the future. For the future of this organization lies in our ability to earnestly deploy our institutional strength to find sustainable solutions to the challenges that we face. Indeed, the challenges confronting our region are profound, but they are also not terminal. Our collective sense of regional solidarity at this time is in many ways our strongest currency.
Now let's stay with those two developing stories. No official from the US will attend the coming G20 summit, which will be hosted in South Africa. And that's according to US President Donald Trump, who said it's a total disgrace that the G20 will be held in South Africa, citing the country's treatment of white farmers. Still on international news, South Africa has been appointed interim chair of SADC after Madagascar relinquished leadership of the regional bloc. due to ongoing political unrest. To unpack this a bit more further, we are now joined by Wits honorary professor for international relations, Professor John Stremlau, and he joins us now via our telephone line. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. Let's start off here and get your reaction when it comes to US President Donald Trump saying that no US official will be attending the upcoming G20 summit.
Well, I'm not surprised because ever since he issued his executive order back in February, that egregious actions of the Republic of South Africa, and it has been consistent for Trump to be denigrating to South Africa. But I praise the balanced way that Cyril Ramaphosa has responded to both this issue and to the SADC chair. And I think that this does provide an opportunity for downgrading the participation of members in the G20 if they can agree on whether they will send lower-ranking members to the Miami summit in Washington, in the United States in 2026, or something that I have recommended consistently since Rubio boycotted the foreign ministers conference. Why not get another G20 member to act as president of the 2026 summit? And there were back in February and March talk of quietly going on with South Africa and members of the G20 to sort of see about a possible chair in 2026, maybe South Korea or Britain even. But I don't know what the status of those conversations are now, but this provides an opportunity. And against the backdrop of the Democratic Party's sweep of the elections last Tuesday, I think it's a very opportune moment to put Trump in his place.
And Professor, I would also want to ask, when it comes to the positioning that we see taken from the US, should we take it seriously, or do you think that this is a diplomatic misstep? Well,
it's mischief, but it's mischief that's really regrettable, and it's also prejudicial. It's racist, and you know, I looked at the 500-word executive order again today, and it was racist then, and it's racist now. But I commend Cyril Ramaphosa for trying to engage the Americans and show that South Africa is a responsible power as opposed to the U.S. right now, in light of Donald Trump's mismanagement of foreign policy and its confusion with domestic affairs. And I think that he is going to lose domestically, but that's an opportunity for South Africa to show its sensible approach to international relations.
And Professor, what do you make of the response from other world leaders? None of them have said that they will boycott the G20 and are standing in solidarity with the US president. And what do you make of their positioning that many of them are still heeding the call and still heeding the invitation and will still join South Africa and the first G20 being held on African soil?
Yes, that's a very, very important and more than symbolic. It's South Africa's effort to try to bridge the North and the South, and that's a very noble pursuit. And yet, I think we have to be realistic. And so long as the Americans are not at the table, and there is an argument that the previous administration agreed to this troika of the G20. And so for a while, it looked like J.D. Vance was coming to South Africa, and I thought that would be a complicating factor. In fact, if now there is no one coming from the U.S., then the G20 can talk among themselves, the leaders, and come up with a solution. And I hope that they can do that.
Yeah.
That it shows that Trump is off base.
Yeah, and Professor, there is another issue I'd like for us to discuss, and that's the issue of Madagascar. And we've now seen President Cyril Ramaphosa has taken over as the interim SADC chair. What do you make of him taking over at this moment following that coup in Madagascar?
I think it's a good example of leadership by South Africa in the SADC region, because the coup is irresponsible and a setback for representative government. I went to the Carter Center sponsored observation mission in Madagascar, which I co-led, and I had hopes that the Madagascar would move in democratic directions, and it's a setback. But I'm glad South Africa stepped up and said they will chair the SADC, and that's to the good, all to the good.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts on those two major developing stories coming in, of course, this evening. And that is Professor John Stremlau. He is the International Relations Professor and Honorary Professor at Wits University.